There she is. There have been some new developments in the case with the focus on a new suspect who's actually being held in jail on another crime in Germany. Let me bring in Court TV special contributor Ashley Banfield, who has covered this story for many, many years. And I guess these are some of the biggest developments we've had in this story ever.
13 years now. It's really hard to believe that that little girl would be 17 years old now. And maybe she is 17 years old. Certainly her parents think she's alive. Even if the Germans led us to believe that they have evidence that she's dead, that was sort of the bombshell back in June when they told us they were looking at this German citizen, a man named Christian Brueckner, pardon my pronunciation. And there's the picture of the person they are now seriously looking at in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann back in 2007. The big news comes to us from the Daily Mail, who has discovered why he was in jail and maybe why the German police, who are fairly reticent about giving a lot of details about people who are under investigation. Turns out he has been jailed for molesting a 5-year-old girl, the daughter of a former girlfriend, and having explicit photographs of her on his laptop. And it's not the only reason that he's been in jail. In fact, he's being held right now on different charges. For starters, he was extradited from Italy because of drug charges. And while they had him, they decided to also prosecute him for rape. And this one is a bit perplexing, Vinny, given the circumstances of the Madeleine McCann case. You wouldn't think it was the kind of rape you expect from someone like this, but it's a 72-year-old woman. And here's where it starts to get very strange. He has been jailed for the rape of the 72-year-old woman, which apparently happened in Portugal, in the same area where Madeleine McCann disappeared. And that rape was 2 years before Madeleine McCann disappeared. So some of the other evidence they have is that his cell phone activity placed him in the area where Madeleine McCann disappeared, that seaside resort where her parents had taken the family for a vacation in 2007. It turns out Christian Brueckner's cell phone had put him in that area at the exact same time as well. And then we also learned from reporting that he was known to have burgled vacation homes and apartments. And Madeleine McCann's family had a vacation apartment in that seaside resort in Portugal. So a lot of the pieces of the puzzle coming together. But this latest piece from the Daily Mail is really eye-opening. The fact that he molested a 5-year-old girl, the daughter of his girlfriend at the time, and served time for it, really, it just sort of hits you. It's a gut punch. And I mean, I don't think you're disaffected, no matter who you are, when you see those pictures of that little girl. I think it's those giant, eyes that made their way all around Europe and Asia and the United States and North America, South America. This was a worldwide story. In fact, I think it was probably one of the most reported on cases in the world when she went missing. And for those who may not remember, her parents went out to dinner not far away, just sort of, within eye distance of the door of the home, went down to have dinner, and she was left at almost 4 years old with her 2 younger twin siblings who were 2 years old to sleep. And they periodically went back to check on them. And the first time Dad went back to check, Jerry McCann, everything was fine. In the second hour, Kate McCann, her mom, went back and Madeleine was missing. And there begat their horrifying odyssey that they've been living for 13 years, Vinny.
13 years. And, for them, there have been suspects in the past, and I'm still amazed that new leads and the way these investigations continue through the years. But what do the parents think about the latest developments here?
So, this bombshell that came in June, that they were looking at Christian Brueckner, when they said so, they also said on a TV show, of all things, that they have evidence that they believe that Madeleine's dead. And I think that really took the McCanns by surprise. The British police still say this is a missing persons case. They don't say that they believe that she's dead. And the McCanns, for their part, responded with a statement about this. I think, we haven't seen them publicly for 3 years, but this is what they said. Since the recent police appeals regarding Madeleine's disappearance, there have been many inaccurate stories reported in the media. The widely reported news that we have received a letter from the German authorities that states there is evidence or proof that Madeleine is dead is false. And I wish I could tell you what they feel, now about this Daily Mail reporting about this, molesting of a 5-year-old girl of the chief suspect in this case right now. By the way, they have been digging in his cellar and searching through his homes in Germany, like huts where he lived in the last 2 months. But they haven't spoken publicly. The video, these videos of investigations have gone all around the world, this recent sort of uptick in activity in this investigation, but the McCanns have not given a public interview. I do want to play for you, however, one of the last interviews they gave to Sky News in 2017, in which you can clearly still see the turmoil in their faces and the belief that their daughter is still alive.
My hope of Madeleine being out there is no less than it was almost 10 years ago. I mean, apart from those first 48 hours, nothing actually has changed since then. I mean, I think the difficult thing has always been, how will we find her? Because you're relying on the police doing everything they can, and you're relying on somebody with information coming forward.
I think that's so important, that everyone thinks, well, what could have happened? But some of the scenarios with other people who've been abducted and kept, they're just so unbelievable that you think, that how could that have happened? And that's probably what's going to happen with Madeleine's case.
I think we've seen, cases like J.C. Dugard and Elizabeth Smart where, girls are gone for months or years and then they're found. And I think perhaps that's the feeling that the McCanns might have. Again, it's hard to believe that little beautiful face is now would be 17 years old, but they have no reason to believe otherwise, that she's not alive. And I also just want to show some pictures that the German police started to circulate in June, asking for the public's help. Look, it was on the 10th anniversary where they went and appealed to the public that they got the first tip about Christian Brueckner. So in June, they started releasing additional details. And this picture, if we can show it, of a van, it's like a camper van that Christian Brueckner was driving. He was driving that van in the Portugal seaside city where Madeleine McCann disappeared. And they just want to make sure that it gets out all around the world. This particular van's very unique, maybe not so much in Europe, but it is a very unique looking van, really kind of run down. But he was living in and out of this van. He was living in and out of that seaside community for all those years. And Vinny, what's so hard is that the McCanns, for those who followed the case, they know that they were scrutinized so heavily, and so many people were so awful to them about going out to dinner and leaving the children behind. That was kind of not unusual in Portugal and some of the European seaside communities. They weren't that far away from the vacation apartment that they were renting, but they were considered suspects, for a long time. They were cleared. Let's just be super clear about that. They are not suspects in Madeleine's disappearance, and they have not been for a long time. And they actually sued a British publication that ran with some pretty nasty, unfounded claims about them, and they won hundreds of thousands of dollars in that defamation case. So it has been the least of which is a traumatic experience of losing your child, and then the 13 years that ensued where they were considered to be suspects. And that's usually the case, Vinny. I don't think you and I have ever covered a case together of a missing child where parents aren't looked at almost first and right away.
No, they always are. Whoever's closest to the child. I mean, that's who's looked at first. And sometimes it turns out they have nothing to do with it, no matter how suspicious you think they look. And in this case, I could see it in their eyes. I mean, I could see the heartbreak and the frustration in their eyes, but they're still holding out hope. And I think that's helpful. As much as you don't know the answer, you don't know the answer until you know. And I guess we'll just
and you know
continue
what?
to follow this and hope for the best here.
Yeah, to your point, the Germans even saying these things on television on the crime show that they were on, like, we have evidence, we believe, Madeleine is dead. They are still not saying that he is facing charges for this. He is not charged with Madeleine McCann's disappearance. It's just extraordinarily suspicious. He's the focus of this investigation. They are digging at his homes. They are looking through two of the huts that he was living in Germany, and they are keeping him in jail at this point. He's been appealing, by the way. It's sort of an interesting thing. When they extradited him from Italy on the drug charges, they thought, now we got you here. We're going to get you on the rape charge of the 72-year-old woman in the seaside resort area. And he's appealing that conviction of the 72-year-old woman that he allegedly, or I should say raped, because he was convicted of it, but he's appealing it, saying that you extradited me for the wrong thing. You can't do that. You can't extradite me for one thing and get me on another. And I don't think he's going to prevail. Much of the court, filings I've read don't look like they're going to side with him on that. But it is interesting that he's fighting it, and they are, at the time being, feeling quite confident they've got him where they want him, and they can continue this investigation and continue to dig and continue to look, and then find these things like the rape of a 5-year-old or the molestation of a 5-year-old girl. So stay tuned to this space. I think we'll be learning a lot more about Christian Brueckner, 45 years old, of German descent, in the days and weeks to come.
Yeah, and it's encouraging that the investigation is continuing. I know it's been 13 years, but it does continue, and it can be solved. Ashley Banfield, thank you so much.
You got it.